Hello stationeers, here with my second tutorial. The previous video I mentioned my arc furnace chamber hallway with my double light switch, and I wanted to go over some of the issues, or rather how this whole setup is done. Now, as many of you may already know, some of you may have experienced, when you have an arc furnace inside of a building that's pressurized, you run the risk of blowing yourself up. You also, if you don't blow yourself up, you increase the temperature extreme, and it takes either a lot of energy to keep that cool, or it takes a while for it to cool down, and then it's a whole waste of time. Now, I've seen this type of chamber on other stationers' videos, but I went ahead and made my own with a setup that completely automates and sections off the entire setup. Now, what I mean by that is I have the automated furnace. I pump items in there. As long as this system is on, it'll start running. If for some reason I need to go into a power saving mode, I can turn the chamber off and then turn it back on without ever having to dismantle anything. As some of you may know, if you turn an arc furnace off in the middle of a burn, it'll spit out the contents that it's finished, leave the contents that are need to be burned in there, and when you turn it back on, it won't restart on its own, even with the automated chips. Now, you could probably run some chips to automatically kick it on if you wanted to, but I like to have a little bit of control over it. So I have a button set up on my chamber to start it up again when I want to start it up. I also have a LED display for how much product is in a chamber that still needs to be burnt out. In this case, this chamber has 197 pieces of product that need to be processed. Now, with all of that, our monitors here, it's a very enclosed, self-sufficient setup. I've gotten to the point now where my base is large enough. I have gas tanks that I can pipe my excess gas off into those tanks. Prior to that, I had just two simple passive vents on the back end, and that worked just as well as the piping. So let's get into everything that you see right here before you. And I seem to be missing my crowbar. Let's see where that crowbar is. Where did I put my crowbar? Oh, I think I know where I left it. There it is. Setting up my hydroponics. So, instead of dismantling that one, I'm going to go ahead and dismantle this one. Oh, pick up things as I go. Now, everything that you see here, most of it, pretty much all of it, you can find online in various tutorials from various people. But I'm going to go ahead and do this since I did the double light switch tutorial a little bit ago. And I'm going to go into detail about the entire setup that I have. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Now, what you're going to see here, everything in here is I/O logic chips. Now, 4 down here, 2, 1, 1, 3. So 4, 7, 11 chips is all that you're going to need. You're going to need, I personally like 2 active vents. It pumps the gas out a lot quicker. I personally think it's safer. You could probably get away with 1. But 2 active vents, at least 1 piece of pipe per vent. And if you're just starting out and don't have tanks, you can use a passive vent on the back, which you're going to need 1 passive vent per active vent that you have set up. Have gas sensor in the middle of the room. These consoles are the unique ones. As you cycle through the console options, you'll notice that almost every single one of them you have to place on a wall. Except for this oddly shaped one, you can actually place it anywhere you want in midair. Ever since I learned this from one of the YouTubers that I end up looking up information from, I've been using this one all the time. It's just so much easier to put it into position. So you have your I/O chips, your vents, 2 different types, your gas sensor, your console if you want to monitor the pressure and temperature inside. I personally do. The chip inside, we'll go ahead and remove one of these, is a gas display circuit board. Very nice board. I don't think I have any chips. Oh, I do have a chip on me. Nice. So we can go ahead and go over that as well while we're doing this. A way to feed the product into the chamber. I use the stacker. Now there's other ways you can do it. For instance, with your chutes, you can use a chute bin. Quite easy to set up. Requires a little bit of power. Excuse me. A little bit of power. You have your chute outlet. It doesn't require power, but you have to kind of toss it in there in order to get it to work, or be right in the right position to drop your item so that it falls in there and slides in. I have a setup outside for my automatic sorter that I'll go over in a different video, but that's for another time. So we'll start off with the automatic furnace setup. Now with these chips, these 4 I/O chips, you're going to want this 2 slot readers, 2 logic writers. Now labeling them is going to labeling everything is going to make things a lot easier. If you're not already doing it, you really should be. So in this case, I have my furnace 6.1, furnace 6.2. Your slot reader will be the first thing that you program, and both will be reading the arc furnace. One will read the import, the other will read the export. Both will read whether it is occupied. Your logic writer is going to read your slot readers. In this case, this one is reading the 6.1, sending it to the arc furnace, activating it. Which means, as soon as product is set into there, as long as it's on, it's going to activate the furnace and start burning product. Your second one, slot reader furnace 6.2, is also going to read out to the arc furnace, and it's going to activate. Now, the reason there are 2 of them, 2 sets, and this is from what I understand from the original YouTube video that I got this information from months back, is without a logic setup to kick the finished product out, there is a chance that as it's trying to kick out, it'll take new product in, and it'll get jammed up. I have never had this happen to me before, but I don't want to say that it won't happen. To be safe, I've always just done it this way. So as soon as product is burned through, it gets kicked out. There's something ready to go in. It moves in, gets burned, kicked out, so on, so forth. Now, with this enclosed, you're going to perhaps want to conserve power at times. Let's say you're just starting out, you don't have much power, you have only a battery or two, solar panels, and you want to turn it off at night. For this, you're going to want the switch, the logic switch. You're going to want 3 I/O chips, an active vent, piping. If you're just starting out, you're going to probably want a passive vent in the back, since you probably don't have tanks yet. Load of cable. Now, since I have 2 vents, I have a batch writer for those, a logic writer for the furnace, and a logic reader. This all operates on-off for both vent and machine. Your logic writer is going to read your switch. It's going to check to see if it's open. Your batch writer, or whichever one it is for your vent, is going to read the switch. It's going to send to your vent, to your active vent. It's going to kick it on. Now, mind you, you need to make sure that it's not blue, because otherwise you're pulling stuff in from outside. And that's just not going to work. On this one, you're once again reading your furnace reader switch, but you're going to send out to your furnace, and you're going to cycle through until you get to your on setting. Once all of that is connected and done, one simple switch turns on your vents, turns on your machine. One simple switch turns them off. Now, as I mentioned before, when something happens to the machine, or you purposefully turn it off, it will not auto restart. You have to go and push the activate button in order to get it to start processing material again. Now, to keep from having to tear everything apart to get in there, you can set up a activation button. This is another logic switch with 2 more I/O chips, a logic reader and a logic writer. Your reader is going to read the switch. A button is what I use. It's the easiest thing. It's just a one press activate. It's going to activate. Your writer is going to read your reader. It's going to send out your arc furnace. It's going to activate it. That means, so long as there's power to that machine, you press this button, and it's going to kick on and try to start processing stuff. That is the basic setup for keeping things running smoothly. Now, sometimes things go wrong and you have to go in, and there's glitches that happen. The previous room to my right, there's a glitch that seems to be going on when I log off. It acts up. But for the most part, this works without a hitch. I've processed a lot of material through here. And now, we're going to go ahead and get into the displays. We'll start off with the quantity display for the arc furnace. You're going to want 2 I/O chips, a logic writer, and a slot reader. Your slot reader is going to read your arc furnace. It's going to read your import. It's going to check the quantity this time. Your logic writer will read your reader chip. In this case, I've named it Furnace 6 quantity. Then it's going to send to the LED display, and it's going to cycle through to the setting. And with that set up, let me pull this out, and we have 1 item in there. $26 items in there. It's a quick, easy, simple setup. Once you get used to doing it, you can power through, bust one out in no time at all. For your console displays, I like to know the temperature and the pressure that's going on in the room. If something's gone wrong with the piping, or the active vents aren't working, I want to know. If I'm walking through my chamber and I see something odd, I want to know right away. So, I set up both temperature and pressure. And you can do that with 2 monitors and 2 of the gas circuit boards. Now, once you get your circuit board set up, all you have to do is cycle through until you find what it is that you're looking for. Now, I have a pipe analyzer connected to this system as well. And you can actually set it to check that instead. This tube feeds through here. So while I'm processing material, I can actually check to see what kind of chemicals are being burned off. I actually have a list right now of what product makes what chemical. Gold, copper, iron, what chemicals get sent to my tanks, at what temperatures. But in this case, I have this set to my gas sensor. And right here, you can cycle through pressure or temperature mode. Toss that there. Take my disc back. Now all of this put together is quite in the initial run of things. Took me quite a few hours to actually get it all set up, get it all programmed and whatnot. But especially after I got the auto sorter finished and set up, it takes no time at all for me to drop off material and things just run without any interference, without me needing to do anything. And it's one less worry on my mind. No. About what needs to be done. Now, as I was describing earlier, one of the issues with having, I'll go ahead and turn this on, suck out what atmosphere is in there. You should notice that the pressure goes down pretty quick. You'll notice here, again, that I have 197 product that still needs to be burned. Something happened and it glitched. The machine had stayed on, but it wasn't processing anything. So I disconnected the power. I did a few things, and then I logged off for a bit, came back on, and it was finally off. So hopefully it'll actually run properly this time. But now I run into the problem of having activated, which is why I set up this switch to get things rolling again. And as you can see, that number's going down. Everything is running smoothly from here. Temperature. Silicon doesn't burn very hot. It only gets up to about 45 degrees Celsius. The pressure normally doesn't get above 1.6 kPa or so. Pipe analyzer, looking at nitrogen, carbon dioxide, pollutant, about a third of each. It's not too bad. But all of that is being sucked straight out. The only thing you do not want to put into these machines is the ice oxides. Do not put those in here. They will blow your walls apart. Trust me, I've done it. I wanted to test it to see if I could run an oxide through. Maybe you can do it in small numbers. I didn't. I did it in a large number, but don't do it. It builds up pressure very, very quickly. So there you have it. Chamber setup with the auto furnace, the on-off switch to conserve power if need be, the reactivation button to restart your machine without having to tear into it, your LED display showing you your quantity, and your console monitors to keep track of temperature and pressure inside the chamber to make sure everything is running smoothly. And that, my dear stationers, is that. The next episode, I will probably go through my auto sorter setup that I have. That took a bit of time, but it's well worth it. And we will see each other later. Have fun building and keep the imagination going.